go live, and if anybody's going to join in with the banter, they might as well. They might.
Might as well, yes.
So we found Simon.
We lost Carl.
2 hours, or we gained 2 hours.
What the real conclusion is, I can't tell the time, or whatever. Oh dear, I was just watching the show. Sadly, not able to join in. It's interesting. You know, I got to say that what made me laugh about that, Johnny Winter, another one of those people who, and there's quite a list of them, who appeared at Woodstock and then wouldn't allow themselves to appear in the yeah, look at that, cool, the Spectrum. Yeah, Johnny Winter, a man who appeared at Woodstock and wasn't allowed by his manager to appear in the film.
Yeah, weird, eh? We had that conversation because
Yeah.
Arvin asked, was he on the film?
Yeah,
I
saw that.
And
That's what
I
got to.
couldn't answer it conclusively, but I've never seen Johnny on any footage.
No, him, Creedence Clearwater Revival, they didn't.
Neil Young,
The Grateful Dead, Tim Hardin, all these people like, bloody hell, you know, never allowed themselves to appear in the film, which is hilarious.
just goes to show, Simon, that
Yeah,
they didn't really know what Woodstock was
what they were
at
on
the time.
No, and of course, as I've said this before, most famously the Keith Hartley band. Anybody heard of the Keith Hartley band? No. That's one reason why, because they played at Woodstock, and then their manager said, "No, we're not appearing in the film."
Yeah.
And so they've disappeared as a footnote in rock history, not as a not as any kind of being recognised for it, which is weird, isn't it? I think Creedence Clearwater Revival was the number one band in America at that time. Didn't think they played very well. They didn't think they played very well. So.
Yeah, big time. And there was also some discussion. I don't know whether it's true or not, but there was some difficulty in filming Jimi Hendrix that last morning with some gear or something like that, or was there some rumor too with some management issues around that being filmed?
Oh, probably. It's all about the managers, isn't it? It's, I know Johnny Winter said that one of his biggest mistakes was not allowing him to be in the Woodstock film.
But Jimmy apparently put his foot down and said no, he wanted to be filmed. Apparently.
Yeah. Oh, did he? Oh, right. There was a bit of a.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a Jimi Hendrix nut, so.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. We were talking a little bit off air about doing a
Jimmy
Hendrix
well, I heard
show.
that. Yeah.
We haven't done one yet. So
you know what the connection between Johnny Winter and Jimi Hendrix is? There's a really good one.
Tell me.
I don't know if you've got to this. Well, Jimi Hendrix's producer was Eddie Kramer. Yeah.
Yes.
And Eddie Kramer started producing Second Winter.
Johnny
Winter album, and Johnny Winter sacked him.
What did he sack him for?
Because he wasn't doing his job. He's like, oh, he's a bloody useless. Yes, they chucked him out. Eddie Kramer, Jimi Hendrix's producer, hoofed him out, and then he did it themselves. Him and Edgar.
Interesting, funny, because maybe it was a personality thing, because no one could accuse Eddie Kramer of not doing his job.
No, indeed, but I can't remember what the reason was now. But all I know is that's true. That basically he started with Eddie Kramer, and after I don't know what Eddie Kramer was doing, but Johnny Winter obviously didn't think he was doing it the way that he thought, so he hoofed him, which is quite cheeky for a man on his second album. It's quite good, isn't it? Yeah, I know. You said he.
I think he was a prodigy, so obviously he knew his way around the control booths, because
he'd been recorded quite a lot, didn't he? Started recording in the early '60s, very early '60s, kind of. I listened to a podcast of him and a guy talking to him, for a bit, and he was saying, yeah, it was really great to hear, go and give your single to the radio, and then they go and play it, and you could listen to it on the radio and stuff.
Wow.
When he was in things, but yes, sacking Eddie Kramer. The other bit I was, Carl mentioned it, that he got £600,000 for signing up to CBS. Clive Davis, yeah. In contrast, Led Zeppelin got 400,000 for their first album. If it's a
so 400 versus 600,000.
Yeah, so it just to put some context around it. Sorry, Arvin's arrived saying, "Haha, look who's finally turned up." Yes, fashionably. Morning, Arvin. Sorry. Yes, I can't tell the time, Arvin. It's as simple as that. Dozy boy side.
Sorry to interrupt, Simon. So who was the guy that signed him to Columbia? Davis.
Clive Davis. President.
Okay, so have you seen the documentary? There's a documentary on Netflix about him.
No, but he's, I know his name very well for all sorts of, because he's the president of Columbia Records and signed.
I need to watch that then.
Hundreds of people. Yeah. One of the original kind of early 70s, sort of those first sort of moguls, the record company moguls, and with David Geffen, of course, is the other famous one. And also, what's they called? A&M, Jerry Moss and Herb Alpert. And so, there's, that kind of, when we've talked about this a lot, that kind of flowering of the album in 71, the first year that album sales took over, I think 71, 70. But, and with that, those new hip cats and David Geffen and Clive Davis, and they're all, that Frank Zappa, we've talked about that Frank Zappa thing. Well, that's who they were. People like Clive Davis, the hip young cats.
So that's the, I don't know if it's going to, Clive Davis, the soundtrack of our lives.
Yeah.
So according to the information on here, yeah. So I can't.
So you can see, can't you? That,
he fell into it because he's an accountant or something like that. He had no musical background at all. So he's one of these guys that Frank Zappa was talking about, Simon. One of these guys that really wasn't an expert, developed his ear as he developed his career, because they made him the chief of Columbia Records or something like that, and was just looking at something that sounded good, that thought would sell.
Yeah, was a lawyer actually, but a lawyer, completely. But he's one of those kind of he. Basically, he was a lawyer, and he obviously got into CBS. 66. But part of that kind of those movie moguls, hired everyone, Santana, Bruce Springsteen, Chicago, Billy Joel, Blood, Sweat and Tears, Aerosmith, Pink Floyd, and their material outside Europe. So one of those first big, like names, if you like, record company names.
Celine Dion.
Gary.
Here's that black
Whitney
girl,
Houston.
Whitney Houston.
Yeah. Oh yes, absolutely. Janis Joplin, Laura Nyro.
Wow.
I mean, he signed him.
Who's the guy that used to play the clarinet with the curly hair too?
Ackerbilk. No. No. That's a bit local, that is it? But,
this guy.
Who's that?
He plays a bloody clarinet.
Does he?
He was, Arvin will know. Someone will know. He does instrumentals. He was really popular in the 80s.
I can't. Was it? Oh no. Oh well, I have a feeling I knew him. He wasn't a sax player rather than a.
So I do this 11-song Christmas record. Five goes.
Kenny G. Kenny G. Is it Kenny G?
yeah.
Yes, thank you,
Yeah.
Arvin. Yes, Kenny G. Oh
Yeah,
dear, that's right.
So this guy Clive obviously fits into that whole kind of shoebox that we were talking about. Was a guy that knew something. Eclectic is probably the best word to describe him, because you look at the people that he had under him, and he was just piling them out, and they were selling records.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he started as a lawyer, and he joined CBS, Columbia Records at 28. So 32, 42, 52, 62, 1960. He joined Columbia Records. Then they had a reorganization. He became vice president in 65, and 66 he started signing. Bands that we know, like Donovan, he signed, Tony Orlando, Barry Manilow, 69.
Wow.
And then he attended the Monterey Pop Festival, and then he signed Janis Joplin, and Laura Nyro, Santana, Bruce Springsteen, Chicago, Billy Joel. So yeah, he's in that turning up in his very early 60s at CBS, and then being part of that record company, sort of pop and rock, that whole 60s label development, from the 50s stuff, then through into the 60s, and then obviously with bands, and then obviously albums, and he's in the forefront of that, signing lots of the people we know.
So what do you think he would have seen in Johnny Winter? Somebody unique. I'm sure there would have been this visual component to Johnny Winter as well. Obviously there's this music aspect, because he was different, wasn't he?
Tall, stick thin albino, completely, yeah. And as Carl said, I think that his authenticity. I mean, I was listening to him, him talking on this podcast, and it was really interesting, because it did give you a real flavour of his early life. Basically, and I think I can make an analogy here with that. The reason he got on so well with black people and went to black clubs and never had anything was that as an albino, he was an outsider.
He was remarkably different himself.
Remarkably different himself, and he got picked on a lot at school.
Yeah,
and he was laughing about the number of fights that he had. School fights, and so only ever lost one fight, kind of thing. But yeah. So I think there's a lot of fighting had to happen. Yeah, because he was different, and in the 50s, different is probably going to be picked on a lot.
Yeah.
So therefore there's that draw to the other show, as Carl said, Beaumont is a very sort of black town, that he that's where he was drawn to, and that's where the blues thing came from, and in a sense, that old thing, you don't need to be black to play the blues, but because it's, and we've talked this about Clapton as well, that thing about being an outsider, about being different, about feeling, as though, and I think Johnny Winter's the same, having to fight, all his certainly his early life, to to get a name, and then what he won't do is play guitar. So I mean, I can see that gives him like the blues, yeah. When people saw him, when black people, Muddy Waters and people saw him, Muddy Waters thought of him as a son, that they got the authenticity of him. They got the fact that he had the blues.
Oh, it's a bit like Peter Green. I didn't realise this until recently, Simon. We all know that Peter Green, is Jewish, comes from North London, and that in itself isn't remarkable. The situation with Peter Green was that he was working class. A lot of people that were involved in showbiz and in London, as you know, from a Jewish background, weren't generally speaking working class. So he was working class and Jewish, because as much as the Jewish presence has been in the UK for a long time, you're still a little bit of an outsider, aren't you?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And you know, there's always that thing, you know, because you have your own religion, because you have your own thing, you know, it gives you a differentiator, which I think is, as I say, still the case with Johnny Winter. And I think that he, you know, that's where he got his edge. And you know, and I, listening to his recordings, the one thing that kind of struck me, and I think this follows on what I said, is that it's almost trying. You listen to 3 or 4 tracks, you go, he's quite aggressive, isn't he?
Yeah.
You know, and that thing you were talking about his sound, you know, the bass and the treble turn, the bass and the treble turn rather than, or was it the bass and the middle turn rather than the treble right up?
Yeah.
That is a kind of, you know, that kind of high, raspy kind of cut through tone is going to be aggressive, isn't it? The tone, you know, it's not that kind of rounded BB King tone.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I never got a chance.
Boy, do we?
I never got a chance to mention it with Carl earlier, but I see a lot of similarities in Gary Moore's aggressive playing and Johnny Winters, that harshness, that aggressiveness that you don't get, and that roundedness that you do with Eric Clapton as an example. So good point.
Good
point.
Eric, not so aggressive player, but more like Jeff Beck. I always think of. I mean, it's not my observation. Joe Bonamassa. I don't know if you've seen that. There's a really good Joe Bonamassa little YouTube video where he shows you how to play Clapton, Beck, and Page on the same guitar with the same just by rolling the tone around and stuff. You know, and he talks there. He nails it pretty well. Yeah, and yes, Arvin as well. Mike Bloomfield as well. Yeah, it's that that Fendery kind of gives you that cut. But, I don't think Mike Bloomfield quite. But yes, I mean the Jeff Beck thing. Very certainly, he says they're very aggressive. You know, aggressive playing, and that's what I took from Johnny Winter. Really was that he had that aggressive edge, and I think that obviously I haven't seen him live, but I've seen clips of him playing live. And there's certainly that getting into it sort of edge.
And that aggressiveness is translated through to and we've spoken about this album, you and I, 3 or 4 times. Hard Again, Mannish Boy. You listen to that opening track, probably one of the best opening tracks on any album. You've got Johnny in the background there going,
completely,
That's not a Muddy Water, even though it is Muddy Waters. It's not a Muddy Waters song.
Well, I mean, Johnny Winter gives it something of him, doesn't he? He manages through being a producer and a guitar player to play it in a different way. I mean, I agree. I've seen film of Muddy Waters doing it in probably the late 50s. Yeah. And it's quite a gentle thing, and it's got a bit of swing. But you're right. It's not I'm a man, giving it some pointy fingery.
Apparently, Muddy loved it though. When he heard it, apparently Muddy he ran around with a boner for 2 weeks. Apparently, he was hard again.
still hard.
Yeah. But isn't that amazing though when you hear a legend, himself, who's responsible for influencing so many guys, being excited to hear
by that,
because you compare that album to say that first album live that at that folk festival. That Muddy did.
The Newport Folk Festival.
Yeah. There's no comparison.
It's not. It's funny that it's much more kind of gentlemanly and kind of as if he's. I don't know whether this is true. As if he's kind of toning it down for a white audience. Now I wonder if that is the case.
Well, I've heard that. Yeah. So apparently, apparently it was toned. Yeah.
Yeah, no, completely, and I could see that, but I think that probably Johnny, reviving Muddy Waters' career, with Hard Again, that actually Muddy Waters could then do it much more authentically. He could do it much more, as a black blues artist, rather than kind of not necessarily having to appease a white audience, because actually the white audience wanted to hear that. They wanted to hear the author. By then, late 70s, you want to hear the authenticity, don't you? You don't want to hear a kind of watered down version of it. You can do that in your local pub. Many a night, people watching People Play the Blues. Yeah. See, Arvin agrees. Yeah, the whole record's like that. Absolutely jumps out at you and kind of, yeah, tremendous kind of. And obviously Muddy Waters, was instrumental in. He knew that Johnny was instrumental in reviving his career. Turning him back into a proper artist again.
So when I first heard that album, Simon, I was in my late 20s. I'll admit that, I was later, had a few years.
Oh, well, we'll go back and forth, don't we?
Had 20 years, 25 years under my belt. And I remember, again, it would have been with some friends. And I had this vision in my head of Muddy Waters. I'd heard of some Muddy Waters songs.
Yeah.
And, I wasn't a Muddy Waters nut, but had heard of him because I was a Clapton nut. So,
yeah.
So I remember that listening to that track going, is this Muddy Waters?
Yes. Yeah, it's the real Muddy Waters.
Yeah. So that was my discovery of Muddy Waters, listening to that album and then going back and then listening to some of the earlier stuff that he did, and then you appreciate that in its own context. But that was my baptism to Muddy. It was like, holy cow. And then it wasn't long after that it was used in a bloody Levi's. It was used in a Levi's ad with Brad Pitt.
Is that when Levi started to bring that sort of stuff in, didn't they? Because there was that. I remember that, and that, and the one that springs to mind is the Tom Waits one. Heart Attack and Vine.
Yeah.
When he sued them for copying him as a, But
did he get much?
I can't remember what he got, but yeah, he sued them. Furious that I think it wasn't hard. They did a sort of takeoff of Heart Attack and Vine, no, Heart Attack and Vine, and I don't think they actually used it, but he sort of sued him because oi, that's me.
Wow.
yeah. That's Mr. Waits is quite protective of his.
I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with these artists doing that. It's not a greed thing. It's you and I and everyone else here in the chat are guitar players. We're artists. We're musicians. So we can understand a little bit of what's going on there. It's mine. I own it, Simon. It's my song. You want to use it? Pay me.
No, completely, yeah. And I think that's. I could see someone like Tom Waits being not so.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's right. Here we are. Look, see, "Heart Attack and Vine" is a song from the Tom Waits album by the same name. It was the song was covered by Screaming Jay Hawkins. Susie Q. There we are. Hawkins.
Yeah.
Was that Dale Hawkins? No, Dale Hawkins. But anyway, he's featured in the Levi's commercial. And Waits sued in the European court and won. Basically, he was opposed to his music, voice, name, or picture being used in commercials.
Yeah.
So in 1993. So basically, it doesn't say how much he got, but but yes, I could see that Tom, being quite protective of his artistic image, wouldn't allow that. Whereas I think someone like Muddy Waters, if you came and said, here's $100,000 for your song to appear in my video, I think Muddy would be going, send money, fill your boots, because because they were trying to be commercialized, trying to make a living. Those guys, weren't they? And obviously had, with varying success through their careers. I can see Muddy going, fine, off you go, $100,000, you say, and residuals. Oh, all right then. I think and I think that I also think there's an age thing in that, isn't there? That the younger you are, the more idealistic you are, and the more you're likely to go clear off. I'm not putting money into a commercial, and then you get around to a certain age and you realise that it's it's Screaming Jay Hawkins Arvin, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's but you know that when you get to 60, or Bob Dylan's done it with I mean his song was featured in a Victoria's Secret advert and stuff, and all sorts of things. I think you get to a certain age and you go, well, if you want to use it and it brings me to a younger audience, why not? Where's the harm? Because it's too late and your music's everywhere anyway and stuff. So you might as well make a quid or two out of it if you can, mightn't you?
And famously, Jim Morrison smashing a hotel room up, finding out that Light My Fire was sold to sell car tires or something.
Yes, and all those kinds of things. Young and in your 20s, you're very idealistic. You're a part of the pop counterculture. The thing not to be doing is selling out to the man and having your music appear in an advert. Roll forward 300 years, 50 years, nobody gives a toss because people, what's it?
Thing is, though, Simon, if you don't own your songs, tough. Look at Paul McCartney. He got pissed off with some of the Beatles songs, being used on ads, and
Well, that's Michael Jackson, isn't it?
Yeah. But tough. As
completely. And I think that it's quite an interesting thing, the way that the changing sensibility of it, that Paul McCartney, being old school artist, doesn't need the money, therefore is, will be saying, well, I don't want my music used to anything. Michael Jackson, 20 years younger than Paul McCartney, 10, 15 years younger, much more into the commercial thing, come up through the Motown commercial thing where it's all commercial. It's all about the sale. It's all about, a different view emerges, doesn't it? And you have
I don't want to get spooky, but I'm sure
get spooky. It's Halloween, nearly.
Yeah. I don't want to get spooky, but I'm sure Paul McCartney has this holistic spiritual aspect to his music too about the Beatles. He's bought into it. He knows that it's music that's informed generations, that people have, cried to, made love to, broken up to, it's more than just the rights to a song. It's people's lives.
Yeah, and that emotional and that kind of artistic ownership is very important to someone like Paul McCartney.
Yeah,
I would guess maybe less so to someone like Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Because Michael Jackson did Pepsi, and he famously, his hair caught fire doing a Pepsi advert. And,
Yeah.
Well, you don't see Paul McCartney doing many Pepsi adverts and stuff like that. So I think it's much more, I'm sure. Let's not pretend he doesn't. I'm sure he does have sponsors that do stuff for him, tours or whatever. But it's much less over. He doesn't sell it. Paul McCartney wouldn't be selling his songs to appear in adverts. He's certainly not on his uppers, Mr. McCartney. He's
Well, from what I've read and seen him on YouTube talk about the songs, I'm fully behind you there. He's, there's the artistic integrity. He certainly was interested in where the money was going too. Obviously, that was one of the reasons why the Beatles had a problem there, because there were two camps asking for two different managers there towards the end, him wanting the Eastmans and John Lennon wanting to be a bastard, saying, well, we're going to have Klein. Because, only because he didn't want to join up or agree with Paul McCartney.
No, that's right. Yeah. And obviously Eastman being Paul McCartney's father-in-law, it's you can see that being a bit, I'm not going to like that, especially if you're not in a good place with them already. That's not going to help, is it? Somehow you're going to help. But you could see, but going back to the Johnny Winter, the Muddy Waters thing, you could see that Muddy would be quite, if you've had some hardship in your life and somebody offers you $100,000 and you're, in your 50s or whatever, you'd be going, send the money, wouldn't you? You know,
He had a few
it's,
kids to
you
look after too, you know. So
a few wives, few kids.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. You know,
Well, you know, and to keep your career going and stuff like that. You know, and as I say, I think you're much less likely to be idealistic when you're 55 than you are when you're 25. You know, about those things. You know, I mean, the world is a different place in the 1980s than it was in the 1960s. You know. 12 years earlier, that counterculture thing was in full swing. You know, bands would not be, anybody worth their cultural salt would not have been allowing their music to appear in adverts. But you get to 1980s and later. I mean, what's that Moby? It's a Moby album, isn't it? Where every song was in an advert, wasn't it? Yeah. See, so by the I said earlier, not play, wasn't it? Play, that's right. But 30 years later, all of a sudden you've got this complete, or 25 years later, you've got this complete turnaround commercially, and an
well,
artist like Moby.
Eminem's
yeah,
music's selling product now. So
well, everybody's doing it. Pop music is omnipresent in adverts and. Hey, look at that! Look at me, Mr. University Education.
But I don't I don't have a problem with the business aspect of music. So long
it's always
as
been business, isn't it?
Yeah, whoever is responsible for a song, well, they should get paid. They should have an opportunity to at least receive something. And yeah, yeah.
Yes, and it occurs to me, of course, that all those blues artists, they all appeared on something called King Biscuit Time, didn't they?
Yeah.
Where they had to do adverts and stuff on them. It was part of the show, isn't it? You had to do kind of this week's sponsors ads and all those kinds of things. It's much more down home, but in a sense, the King Biscuit hours would, it still kind of plays into you in a way that. The bands from the counterculture, the 60s and stuff, wouldn't have played into because they wouldn't have played on the King Biscuit Hour. I don't think.
Well, I just mentioned in the show earlier with Carl, I work with a guy that comes in and gives me a hand part-time, a guy called Paul Trenwith, who was a founder of the Hamilton County Bluegrass Band, which is...
well done.
Responsible for bluegrass in New Zealand and in Australia, and he's played at the Grand Ole Opry, and working with Paul.
Wow.
and just he's famous in bluegrass circles. What's interesting is talking to Paul about that whole bluegrass country scene, like the Grand Ole Opry, and We Sell Millions as WSM, which was an insurance company. It was all around. The whole Grand Ole Opry, Simon, was around selling product and services. It was a big deal. The radio broadcasts, people coming in. It was, business was important. And sometimes, you forget that when you think, okay, Earl Scruggs and Lester Flats, you're listening to, Bill Monroe and all this music. But you forget that, man, it was a money, business-orientated enterprise.
Yeah, and and although as I say, the counterculture of the '60s and sort of gave the illusion of splitting off from the man, and sticking it to the man and all that stuff. That actually, it's a bit of divergence. But 10 years later, now you get to the 1980s and you're back on it. You're back in, back in the commercial mainstream. The 80s were, huge. The 80s and 90s huge for selling albums. Probably peak times, album sales, and actual physical, shifting physical product. CDs and particularly and stuff. $15.99 a go. That's how much CDs were. £16, pretty much. That's a lot of money, when they cost 50p to make. Somebody's making a lot of money out of that. And I guarantee you it's the record companies,
Keith Richards mentions that in his book, Simon. The establishment tried to get rid of the Stones by doing drug busts. that didn't work. So they decided, well, maybe they'll tax the shit out of them, you know.
That didn't
Ma-
work.
Maybe that might work, but that didn't work. They buggered off to France. But yeah, you're right. What was it? Like 83% of what they were going to make was going to taxes.
Yeah, into Britain in the late '60s, early '70s, which when the Stones left, we had a Labour government, Harold Wilson, and one of the things was that there was a 93% tax, I think, for people who earned over, like whatever it was, £100,000 or something like that. Yeah, yeah. It's very much a kind of the socialist thing. The more you earn, the more you pay back. And how much money does a man need to live? And all of those, all of those kind of socialist arguments. Can't you live on 50,000 a year, kind of thing? It's one of those. Yeah, but if 100,000 is better. So over a certain point, you paid, I think it was 90% tax. So most of
So
your
what were
earnings
the
over.
Beatles? So what were the Beatles paying then?
Well, they would have been paying the same. They would have been the same. I think, that. Paul McCartney, John Lennon moved to America after all. I wonder if it was a dissimilar. You could quite easily say no. Tax. Let's have a look.
Maybe the Beatles didn't owe the tax department as much money, maybe, as the Stones.
Well, I don't. Yeah, I know there's that thing about
because there would be that whole interest thing too, wouldn't there be?
Well, yeah, as well. But let's just see if I can put a bit of history of taxation for the rich.
Well, Arvin's making a good point here, because certainly this was the impression we got.
Well, absolutely, Harvin. I think you're absolutely right about that. And I think that certainly the Beatles when they were splitting up, I don't think they had much money. I don't think that a lot of it had been absorbed or wasted or whatever. No, they didn't necessarily.
Apple Corp would have been a swamp.
Eaten up with all sorts of hangers on and let me see if I can find anything about no, that's America, not UK. But yeah, so that's why the Stones moved to went to France to make Exile on Main Street, because for tax reasons, because as I say, that after a sorry, beyond a certain point, it's it was about you could it's amazing, those things, which made a lot of rock people would have left, because the tax thing was so so much. No, some people didn't, some people didn't, but a lot of people did move to other places, move their businesses to Liechtenstein or somewhere, or
yeah. And it's I think what's really cool about a lot of these artists is that they educate themselves to a point where they realize a little bit of what's going on, like Tom Petty, for example. So I couldn't understand the whole rigmarole at the time when there was a discussion that Tom Petty was in the ship with his record company. But basically, as we found out through watching that film, Simon, he's basically saying, you own me to this record company, and then you go and sell me to another record company. Where do I come into the picture?
Yeah, yes, really interesting, all of that, isn't it? And it seemed to be, but that kind of, I don't care. You can't sell me down the river, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Him and
I'm not yours to be sold.
yeah. And it's not, they're not quite the same, but I feel there's a parallel between him and Bruce Springsteen, because Bruce Springsteen had that massive, fallout with his manager, Mike Appel.
Yeah.
For terrible contracts that he'd signed on the hood of a, on the hood of a Dodge, things you should never do. But, desperate to get a record contract, you sign his contract, then you discover, because you get more canny people in, that these things are bloody awful, you know. So but he went, Springsteen didn't record for 3 years.
Yeah.
He got banned from recording, and had to go to court all the time,
Yeah.
and and kind of do this, this weird kind of, this weird
Interesting.
act of.
Interesting how a manager can pick up the phone and basically blacklist an artist or a band, can basically get doors closed on you because of a deal that he's got that's going wrong with you. Interesting.
Yeah,
How much
yeah.
power.
Oh, yeah. They can stop you working. For 3 years, the only income Springsteen had was to go on the road, because that was the only place he could earn money. So they would go on the road and they would play. Those famous.
Did he have a jar on stage?
Yeah, pretty much. I think he pretty much did have, but his promoters, kept him afloat. I think, because I don't think he probably didn't earn much money from Born to Run.
So
And,
he couldn't make a record until
no, he couldn't make a record for 3 years. No, couldn't record
3 years.
3 years, yeah. Which is why Born to Run is 75 and Darkness on the Edge of Town is 78. Was it? Badlands starts, doesn't it? Lights Out Tonight, Trouble in the Heartland.
Yeah.
Got a head-on collision course caught in a crossfire that I don't understand. If that's not about his last 3 years' trouble, I don't know what is.
Interesting to see.
Oh, look, Jack Daniels has arrived.
artist
Good morning, Jack. How you doing? It's
G'day,
part
Jack.
2. Simon wakes up.
It'd be interesting to think what kind of artist he would have been had he recorded some albums during that 3 year period.
Yeah, I think it would have been a very different thing because, an album recorded, because obviously Darkness on the Edge of Town is a punk record in many ways. It's got short, punchy, pared down, quite bleak songs. Deliberately. They record a lot of other stuff that wasn't like that.
As they, you think those are direct experiences of the road for the 3
direct
years?
experience of the road, direct experiences of his personal situation, going through the the law courts against Mike Appella stuff. Interestingly, they have when they all sorted it out, he's still got a relationship with him. Put Our House on the market on Friday. Sold it Saturday. Good, Jack. Well done. That's very good. Where are you moving from and to?
Yeah,
miles.
Awesome.
And good morning, Kubrick lover. Yes, I've managed to wake up, and I can't tell the time. That's what the trouble is.
Kubrick lover, and he's got Hitchcock on his on
Has he
his
got his,
what is
yeah,
it?
the film
what do you
man.
call that bloody thing? What's
Avatar.
this? Avatar.
Avatar.
Yeah. Hitchcock's awesome.
We're in Sydney, and we're moving to country Victoria.
Oh, Victorian. He's going to be a Victorian. Oh gosh.
Is that a long way? I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think
Moving
so.
out of Sydney. Yeah, moving out of Sydney.
4 million people in Sydney, or 5 million, or something like that. Country Victoria. Yeah, that's
moving to the country. I can recommend it. Jack, I live in the country, outside a city called Bristol, on the west coast of the UK, and I can recommend living out in the country as opposed to the town. I go to the town to work sometimes, and then I go away again. I'm just a country boy.
Well,
Why not? Yes. So so good luck with that. It's yes, new beginnings.
Yeah, congratulations.
About 1,000 kilometres. Bloody hell. Yeah. That is moving somewhat, yes. Yeah. I couldn't move that far in the UK. It's not big enough. Maybe just about. Yes, what's that? 300, 420. So yes, 800, about 800 miles. Yes. Just think, but yeah. So I think that it's very interesting, all of that with Johnny Winter, and that kind of going back, and just these things being sold. Was Was he not happy about it, Johnny Winter?
What's about not being on Woodstock?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
no,
I
I
was thinking
don't know.
about the Muddy Waters thing. I was thinking about the Muddy Waters thing. Was it? Because I can't imagine Muddy Waters hacked off about having his song in a Levi's advert. Was Johnny Winter not happy about it?
No. Johnny Winter made no comment as far as I know about that, but he was absolutely over the moon about having to record that album, being involved in recording that album. And I read recently that Muddy Waters himself, when he listened to that first opening track himself, he was blown away. So there must have been some kind of connection, as you said, Simon, with what he was playing live in those blues clubs originally, with the sound that Johnny was getting for him on that album.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just turning off the heating in my house. It's about 13 degrees. We don't need the heating on. We've got to save the planet.
So Kubrick, so just find me on Facebook under Andrew Walton. What I'll do is I'll leave a link to my Facebook page on here.
Look at that. Go to Kubrick Lover's next comment. Put that on. I bought a piece of the Woodstock stage, a piece of sawdust. It sounds like a medieval icon. Kubrick Lover, I've got a small piece of the femur of Saint Francis or something. I go religious icon. I've got a small piece of the femur of Saint Francis of Assisi. In this gold box. Really?
I've got a relic of the cross too. Of the Holy Cross.
Oh, yeah. Yes. If everybody who had a relic of the Holy Cross put it together, you'd have a cross the size of the Empire State Building.
You'd have a forest, Simon.
Would you? You would have a forest. Well, I mean, no, here we go. Tangent time. I mean, a medieval religious relics. Is a tremendous, huge trade in Imagine. Do you want to buy a small splinter from the cross, sir? It's like, oh, look at that. And as you say, you put those all together, you've got a large forest.
Kubrick Lover. Did you pay
$25? Well done. You got $25 for it.
Okay. That's what I was going to. How much did you How much did you pay for it?
I hope you keep it in a sacred box, Kubrick Lover. Look at that. And he's got a friend who went to Germany a few years ago, came home with a piece of the Berlin Wall, commonly known as a brick shard. It's quite hard to prove provenance on that, can't you? I could have gone outside and chipped one off the bricks. Look at that Berlin Wall. Who's to know? You see?
Was telling us, Simon, when he was on, don't buy anything that someone says as an autograph or a signature of the Stones. That's one thing.
That's right. Yeah, unless you got it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, Arvin's saying, yeah, I have the same holy power Woodstock stage and a femur of the saint. Yes, absolutely. Just depends on your religion, Arvin. You see, it's Catholicism or hippieism. Take your pick for your religious relics. So that's wonderful. That's I love those sorts of things. It's all in the minutiae, isn't it? Of doing it. The other thing, just a small thing that I mean, you didn't. I don't know whether you said it on there, but the connection between Johnny Winter and the Rolling Stones.
He recorded a lot of their songs.
Well, but also I didn't realise this until was that the opening song at Hyde Park was a Johnny Winter song.
By the Stones.
Well, they played "I'm Hers, I'm Yours." Is that what it's called? As the opening track at Hyde Park.
I've got the DVD somewhere, but I don't know if the DVD is complete.
I don't know where it is either. apparently they opened with his song.
Oh wow.
69. Yeah, is it called "I'm Hers, I'm Yours"? So the first track on his
Yeah.
first album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
wow.
opened it with "I'm Yours, I'm Hers" because it was one of Mick Taylor's favourite songs, and of course that was his first gig, and so they opened with that. And I didn't know that until I was horsing about looking up stuff about. Yeah, so basically they did the Percy Bysshe Shelley poem, and that's what they went into. I'm telling you nonsense. Brian Jones's favourite song of the moment, apparently. How odd is that? So in a sense, there's a bit of mutual going on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Well,
went back and.
definitely something going on.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure they came across each other regularly, and and. Oh, there we are. So it's yeah, amazing kind of sort of synchronicity there. It's kind of just turned up. Yeah, look at that. And we're all about the Rolling Stones, and there we are. There's another link to the Rolling Stones. Which Andrew? Which Andrew Walton are you? That's it's a technical one, isn't it? He's the one with the Clapton and the guitar on it.
That one.
Find
that one.
Find that one. So, I wanted to ask you some questions. I wanted to ask you some questions about something. So I'll show you. I've been messing about with this for a week or so, on deciding whether I can whether I'm going to buy it or not. It's very cheap, but you see that?
What is it, Simon?
Oh. No, we're back. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I went in the sitting room and did you see that? Did you see what it was?
No. What was it?
Well, it's a Fender Mustang 4.
Wow.
Right? Which a friend of mine I used to be in a band with, Ian, is selling. It's only £100, but basically I've got my old Peavey, my 22-year-old Peavey Delta Blues, which I feel is kind of beginning to feel its age a bit. So it's the reverb needs a bit of work doing onto it, which is fine. But I was thinking, well, I need to probably get myself another amp. So I sort of, Ian said, "Do you want to buy this amp?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." So he bought it to practice, and I've been playing around with it, and I've come to a horrific conclusion. I've been A/Bing it against my Peavey Delta Blues,
Yeah.
And what I've discovered, the Peavey Delta Blues goes a Tweed amp. You think, oh yes, that's based on a Fender Tweed Deluxe or something, yeah. And when actually I've discovered, no, it isn't. It's not. The sound, because that Mustang's it's a transistor amp. It's it's not a valve amp. It's a modelling amp. It's got all
That's right.
So you can put it on a 65 Deluxe Reverb or whatever.
And the 65 Deluxe Reverb on those amps, I've played that amp with that on that, and it's remarkable.
Do you see? Yeah. Now, do you see? You think it's remarkably good, accurate? Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
I mean, I would have thought it was. Do you know what? I've come to the horrific conclusion. I don't like it.
Really?
It's really weird, isn't it? It's like, that can't be true. All my life I've thought. I haven't played that many Fender amps, so I remember not recently. And I think that Kubrick Lover Eddie Van Halen did use PV amps, the 61, what are they, 5150s or whatever they're called. There's like three. I think there's three generations of PV amps that Eddie Van Halen used. So
you don't like it. You don't like that amp because it's
No.
too good.
Well, I don't like it. I don't like the sound of the Fender.
Wow.
But it's got that kind of. I tell you what it is. The
too twangy?
PV. No, actually, quite the opposite. My PV is kind of quite big, very kind of open, and very clear. Yeah, very
Yeah.
like crystalline clear. So I play my Stratocaster for it. It's very, and quite sort of balanced. I think in terms of its, bass, middle, and treble. The Fender seems to have, for me, and you tell. I'm asking you because I know you've got a Blues Junior or something. You've got basically. It sounds to me like I'm round the corner. It's like I'm playing it, and it's got a slightly sort of middly kind of slightly almost sort of, as I say, as if you're playing it and you're in the next room or something. You seem to be a bit distanced from it.
What volume are you
odd.
playing?
Oh, it can go loud. Jeez, it can go loud.
See, I've had a Vox modeling amp, a VT50, and I use some Yamaha modeling amps at the moment. But one of the issues with the Fender modeling amps, from what I can remember, Simon, is that they have to be turned to get that classic Fender sound. But if you don't like the Fender sound turned down low, don't.
Yeah. But no, I mean, you're right. That amp it's 150 watts. So it goes blooming loud. And I've turned it up. I've cranked it, get it up to 5 or 6. And look at we got Guitar Hack. Good morning. How you doing?
Hey.
Welcome to part 2. Simon wakes up. Well, before we get, just Jack Daniels making some interesting comments about they've gone off on an EVH tangent, which was it? Yes, Jack, you could go louder in the country. That's right. Yes, moving away from the Marshalls, which is first to the PV50. And they made 3 versions of the PV, didn't they? There are 3 versions of it. There's a third one, isn't there? Yeah. Apparently, by a Friedman. By a Friedman. No trouble making them I. But yeah, what I've discovered, absolutely cranking it, yeah, that I'm appalled to say I don't like it. It's just got this kind of, this slightly removed kind of middly sort of thing that I can see. I've done some mucking about, quite a lot of mucking about with it, and I can see how it might work in a sort of bluesy concert, but that's not the sound I want. So I'm now a bit stuck. So I'm now not going to get it because it doesn't work that well with my GT3 either, my Boss pedal thing, which is odd, to frankly.
Well,
I've tried it through the the effects loop, everything.
I had a Fender Blues Junior, and I wanted to love that song. I wanted to love it. Everyone was talking about it. I got rid of it. I've got a Vibrolux Reverb, which is it's a
Fender.
two 10-inch speakers. Difference, lots of headroom. So
Yeah, that's right.
You got to play it to appreciate it. So no, good on you. The fact that you don't like it.
But it just, because you think, everybody said, and this is very interesting about language, that the language that everyone uses about Fender amps, is that you've got clean headroom and it's very, very clear and very kind of, but when it came to it, against my PV, it isn't the same. As I say, I've got this funny thing where it feels like, if you're in an L-shaped room, and you had your amp round the corner, and you slightly lost some of the top end as it comes round the corner, kind of thing, or you put a blanket over it. Well, it sounds a bit like that, and I just and I can see that I played some blues on it and stuff. Cranked it and it plays blues, and you go, right, okay, I get where that is, and if you were doing
Sure.
that, I could see where this fits. But hilariously, that's not what I want. And for 40 years, I think I've been thinking, I'll get a Fender out, get a Blues Deluxe or something, the ultimate amp. And actually, no, I'm not doing it. And it's interesting. You said the same thing about your Blues doing. You couldn't. Was it because of that? Was that because of that sound?
Yeah.
Am I accurately describing it in some weird way?
Yeah. That's exactly. But it's interesting though, because there's a lot of reviews about the Mustang with that 65.
Well, it's got loads of. It's got a 50. It's got a basement. It's got a 56.
The basement setting too. Apparently,
Blimey.
got a lot of good reviews. So you either like it or you don't.
Yeah, well, as I say, I didn't like I thought the bass was just wildly bass heavy. Going, whoa, for the alternate, stop that now. God, I've forwarded a sound. I wouldn't start there. But let's just ask Hack, how did your gig go? How was your new Marshall amp? He got a new Marshall DSL 40.
Yeah,
he chopped his old one in for a new one. I hope it went well. Jack, thank you. Yes, tilt it up. I've got ears in my knees.
I saw a post where Hack said that he's loving it. He's loving that new amp.
Yeah, the same but better, which is what you'd hope. But yeah, so I'm sort of on the hunt for an amp, but not a Fender amp. Which do you know what? I never thought I'd hear myself say. It's funny. I don't know whether change to pick up switch and place going. Oh, Kubrick, have you got a Fender Mustang amp to get some good for it? Do you recognise what I'm talking about, Kubrick lover? I don't know what have I. Gig was great and the amp kicks butt. Excellent. But so yeah, I'm on the search for an amp that does what that kind of more kind of very kind of clean, where you're playing, you can hear all the notes and stuff, and but kind of more balanced as well.
Have you checked out a Vox AC15?
No, are they more like that? I thought they were quite middly.
It depends if you like again, I've had an AC15, so if you've got the volume cranked up, it's got a master channel as well, but you certainly get some nice cleany chimes through it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe have a look at that. Yeah, Simon needs a Marshall. Do I? It's yeah. So it's I'll be off now. Well, I'm going to go to. I tell you, obviously looking around, stuff like that. Well, the one that I thought, blimey, that's really was was an orange Rocker 32.
Fantastic, mate.
That sounded amazing. I mean, demos. I did put the demo through my stereo to get, and actually, and I went back and did, got some Fender, stuff to listen to through my stereo, and I could hear the same thing as I can hear, which is quite interesting. So yeah, but yeah, the orange Rocker 32. Wow, that sounded amazing. But it's got that bright, crystalline sound that my PV's got. But as I say, my great surprise is that the PV doesn't sound like a Fender amp. I don't know where I got that from. It looks like a Fender amp, but it doesn't sound like it. And I don't like the Fender.
When I got my Les Paul, Simon, I played it through the local shop here. Had about they've got about half a dozen of the
yeah. Oh, is he cut himself off? Arvin, I agree. I think that I've played through a Katana. I played it in May on my Guitar Breaks holiday. They had some Katanas. They were pretty good. Yeah, I liked them. If you come back, there you are.
What happened there? And I played my Les Paul through a couple of those orange amps, and I love them. They're fantastic. But I've purposely kept away from them. I don't want to have anything to do with them. I don't want to look at them anymore.
They're the work of the devil, huh? The orange devil.
Simon.
Yeah, over there, they're quite expensive. Yeah, they're 800 quid or something. Yeah, here. But
no,
but yeah,
I love them. I love them. Peter
Yeah.
Green played through an Orange amp for a couple
Did
of
he?
years too.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But yes, it was really interesting. That was a really interesting little detour in my, it's one of those classic things, isn't it? What you think based on nothing or very little, and
Yeah.
then you suddenly find your whole preconception of the whole thing is turned upside down. But the fact when you actually get it, well, I actually didn't like it, which is kind of like, God knows I tried, hours of messing about with it. As I say, particularly it's
Awesome.
it's you see Brian May, yes, he uses Vox amps, doesn't he? Kubrick lover, I agree.
Yeah.
And I as I say, the katanas, I've played a katana on the guitar breaks holding. That was good. They were good. I like that. It was fine. But my problem is, and it's a problem of my own making. It depends how you fix it, doesn't it? I've got this Boss GT3. And I've got sounds, and I really like it, and it's got a whole load of electroacoustic sounds and stuff like that. Yeah, so it's got very nice acoustic guitar simulations and stuff, and quite, to quite plain to quite sort of, lots of chorus and delay and stuff like that. Quite 80s sort of things, but that are good for actually playing quite a lot of songs. I use it on quite a lot of things. That sound, and do you know what? It sounds horrible through the Mustang. It kind of breaks up in a kind of really sort of weird driven way, which that, yes, there are many ways to kill this particular cat, but the direct sound.
Simon,
Yeah.
your Boss unit will sound like shit through any modeling. That's the problem with modeling amps. They don't take effects that are models anyway.
No, I think yes. Trying to do a model on a model probably isn't a good idea.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So definitely your Boss unit's got to go through some valves.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the conclusions I've come to. If that's what you want to do, and there is a thing that says, well, Simon, stop using that old Boss GT3 thing and get a proper thing, But actually, I quite like it, and because actually. There are several things. One is, I think I've got some pretty reasonable tones out of it, for starters.
Great.
Two, I think that it is this great big hunky metal piece of madness. I've dropped it, I've thrown things on it, people have stamped on it, and yet it still goes because it's a Boss, and you go, yep, actually, why would I change? And I wouldn't mind a Boss GT1000, the new Boss GT1000s. It's like that. It's fantastic. Guitar hack now working for Marshall. See, now he's got over his 1,000 subscribers. He can get money. I'll be sending your comments through to Marshall straight away.
But apparently that's what a lot of artists are doing now, Simon. Anyway, guys that fly into gigs, it's all about their effects box. Or it's about their pedal board because they know what they can get with their effects, and they make their effects fit whatever amp because you can't carry your Marshall stack, but you can take your pedal board with
But I guess oddly, if you took I don't know one of those big, what are they called? Those big modelling things, not a Kemper. Oh, hey, look, Gussie Wells, blimey. How you doing? Gussie Wells, long time no see. That's really good. Yeah. The Helix or something like that. Yeah, Helix.
Yeah.
So, people take that, all set up. So that obviously sounds fine, even though it's a modelling thing through a proper Fender. But not, nobody's ever given them a Mustang, you'll be pleased to know. which is good. So I mean, but it's been interesting, to discover that maybe I'm not such a fan of the Fender sound as I think I am. If that's the sound of the Fender, and actually I'm interested in something a bit different, which is great, really interesting. And I don't know what, it's maybe Hack's right that maybe a Marshall does that more thing. Although I've played Marshalls in the past, I've never really liked that sound. I mean, I went from a high watt, which was ridiculous, but had that very clean kind of, I like the sound of it. It was beautiful sound, very clean and obviously not a Marshall sound. But yeah, to the PV, which had a sort of similar sound, but as a combo, So, yeah, and I find that's what I like, and I go to find an amp that does that, a more modern amp that does that in this sort of way. But yes, it's interesting that
keep us in the loop.
I think I've heard, yeah. See, DR, yes, Dave's Arcade Stars. He there was lots of people like the Helix, and Brian Stewart's got a Helix, hasn't he?
Yeah,
Brian's
yeah.
got a Helix. Yeah. It's amazing the kind of. But yeah, yes, the journey of trying to find the sound you like is amazing, And yeah, as I say, finding that the rule book has been torn up because I didn't like the Fender sound of the Fender. What a sacrilegious thing to say. Go and stand in the corner. So, but it's interesting that you didn't get on with the Blues Junior either.
No, no, and I've told people not to buy the Blues Junior, in my opinion. Spend a little bit more money and get the two 10-inch speakers makes a difference. Having the two speakers. But again, it depends. Where you want to play and what you're playing to, Simon. I just didn't like the Fender sound. It was too boxy in that in that Blues Junior anyway. And a lot of guys love it because they're bedroom players. Fine.
Yeah. So yeah, all right. So yeah, the description boxy. That's what it means. It kind of, as I say, I can describe it as being a bit like you put a blanket over it.
Yeah.
So it's all a bit muffled. Yeah, that's fine. That's right. As I say, getting into the language of these things and and actually understanding what any particular piece of language used to describe a sound is quite technical. But so yeah, see, I don't like that boxy sound, and that seems to be the Fender thing, doesn't it? What's this? having a my JCM 2000. Is that a 100-watt mad?
Yeah, that's going to blow your socks off.
I hope you haven't got close neighbours, Gussie. You'll be yes. Return your fever of the saint immediately. I shall be, Arvin. I put myself in the sound corner with the dunce hat on. Yeah, there's a Fender versus Marshall fight. Look at that. Somebody knows Harry Hill. Jack Daniels, Harry Hill. There's only one way to sort this out. Fight. Does that mean anything to you?
I've had two problems with my Marshall Origin head. It's I've blown it up twice. My Marshall Origin 50. The second time, and it's just gone back to the shop. The transformer's blowing.
Oh right, is that? I don't know whether. But it's a head in a cab. That's interesting. What? So it's happened twice. Have you had it for a while? Is it an older version?
No. I've had it for about 3 months.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. Yeah, that's not very good. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what they say if it comes back the second time or they replace it. But I had a chat to Hack about a week and a half ago, and he still gigs with his. They got good reviews when they came out, but it just seems like maybe I've just got a lemon.
Yeah, sounds like it. Yeah. Will they give you a new one?
Well, hope so. But I play mine though through my aux box.
Right.
And what was interesting when I took it into the shop, and I was talking to the guy, I said, Hank, giving him the rundown. I said I play it on 10. And he goes, "What? What do you play it on 10 for?" And I said, because it goes through my aux box and 3 monitors. And the whole idea with the aux box is that you crank the amp because it's like an attenuator. And
turn it down. Yeah.
And it's about, and it shouldn't matter what volume the amp's on. So, no, I'll keep you in the loop there. But I certainly know the difference between Marshall and Fender now. Having a Marshall and a Fender, there's definitely a big difference. Definitely.
Yeah. So how would you describe the Marshall sound from your Marshall Origin?
Okay, so the best way I can describe the Marshall sound is I could never get anywhere near, in my mind, what a Beano tone was with my Vibrolux.
Right.
There was no way I could get that. With my with my bass breaker, I could get a little bit close to it. But as soon as I got the Marshall head
Mhm.
and cranked the gain up on that, I was there, Simon.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the Beano album saying that kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
yeah,
is interesting because that Beano album, apparently, the Marshall that Clapton was using was based on the Fender Bassman.
circuit. Yeah, but not.
But,
Yeah.
But the way I can explain it is the Fender sound is like this. The Marshall sound.
It's like more straight on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it? Are we talking less muffled here as a kind of, as a.
And no muffle. There's no muffle. It's just the Marshall. The sound was more direct. I could hear it quicker. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. But I understand. Yeah. See, it's really difficult. This put in a Celestian Blue Alnica in the Fender, you will get the Beano tone. By the way, that's some of my favorite tones of all time. Oh, changing the speaker. Ooh.
Wow.
Yes. Shane from In the Blues is a great advocate of changing speakers, isn't he? To get the sound you want out of it. Yeah. That's well, Gussie. Well done. That's a really useful. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah, what things you can change to make your amp sound the way you want it to. I think when I've had there was something Kubrick Lover said. I think I blew the speakers on my MacBook Pro a little because I had it plugged into my Fender amp.
Blame the Fender amp.
There we go. Poor old MacBook Pro speakers instead of be struggling with the Fender amp by some distance. Bad luck for Kubrick Lover. That's sure you have to buy a new to buy a new MacBook Pro after that, destroyed by the Fender amp. Somebody else made an interesting point about wondering about whether the change speaker. Who was it? Where is it? Was it Gussie saying that? Did he wonder whether the aux had anything to do with it, with blowing it up? You're turning it up and then putting it through the aux. I don't know anything about these things, but
no, it shouldn't make any difference because I crank my Vibrolux and play that through the aux, and the Vibrolux is going fine. The whole idea with the aux box is that you crank your amps, and and you get the amps, the valves, and everything working. So I just think I've got a lemon.
Gosh, keep going back. What's this? Brian Johnson here.
Off to bed. Yeah, I'm going to have to probably.
Yeah, I was going to say, what time is it in your neck of the woods? We've been going for an hour and 20. I know. See, who talks too much?
It's always a pleasure, my friend.
I know.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm glad we jumped on board and we've managed to have a chat. So
I'll get up earlier next week. There's no face facts.
Dwayne Allman
next week. Yeah. Dwayne, slide player extraordinaire.
So, actually, are we going to talk about everything?
As a coda to that, it's apparently to Johnny Winter. This podcast I was in, to Johnny Winter. He talked about Dwayne Allman. He said, Dwayne Allman, I think he was jealous of me. I'm definitely a better player than Dwayne Allman. That might be contentious for Mr. Winter. Yeah. That's quite funny. Yeah, see, I'm all right. See, 8:05 in the morning here, just ready for breakfast.
So, do you think Johnny would have said that because Dwayne was just playing slide at that time?
Yeah, yes, Kubrick level we are, but just I don't know, to be honest, but yeah, that's certainly possible that because Dwayne Allman is known as the slide player, isn't he? That's what I think of him. If I think of him, I mean, if he's in the Allman Brothers, who's got Dickie Betts, who not a slide player, so you've got not slide. So
When
I can see that.
Yeah, well, Statesboro Blues.
Yeah.
It's all slide for me. Allman, it's slide. When I think of Dwayne Allman, but when you got
indeed,
Dickie Betts playing in your band, you can afford to just slide, can't you?
Well, you can, yes. But we can examine that in more detail next week. But that was my little Johnny Winter, Dwayne Allman link up. Do you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to have a chat. His session work, some of the stuff obviously that he did with Clapton, because we can't sidestep Layla, that album.
No, indeed not. No. But be interested to get the sort of the died too young thing as well, isn't he, Dwayne? Was he part of the 27 Club?
Apparently, Dwayne Allman did consider leaving the Allman Brothers to go on the road with Clapton. Apparently he did consider it. It wasn't just like, no, I'm staying with the Allman Brothers. He considered it.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, yeah. If you feel like you're playing with Clapton, it's you feel there's a magic there, a spark there.
Yeah.
You might consider, wouldn't you? Yeah. But anyway,
all right,
let's not jump the gun.
Okay. Jack Daniels and everyone.
Yeah, Jack, Gussie, Kubrick Lover, Arvin, of course, and Guitar Hack. Yes. Thanks very much, guys, for jumping in. I'll get up earlier next week so we can make this one show, not two.
And Simon better keep us informed on the AMP journey, because this will be interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, I've a whole area cordoned off, not for me.
All right.
And on that bombshell.